Okay, we're back. Thank you, everybody, for putting your music requests into the chat. We will see what we can do about accommodating. This has been good fun for us here this morning. It's now my pleasure to welcome Ben Farrell, Executive Director responsible for post-secondary digital literacy and programs within the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills. That's quite a lot of words. The ministry has developed a digital learning strategy to support BC's post-secondary system's use of digital technologies in the delivery of post-secondary education and training. And work is currently underway to implement the strategy, whose initiatives are intended to enhance the post-secondary system's capacity to deliver high-quality learning opportunities, improve access for learners who encounter barriers, and to foster collaboration in the post-secondary system. It's quite an interesting initiative that's going to impact a lot of different aspects of our work here in higher education. And here to tell us more about it is Ben Farrell. We're going to go over to the pre-recorded portion of this session, and then we'll be turning it over to the live question and answer. So again, just a reminder, please put your questions into the Q&A or the chat, and we will switch over to Ben in just a minute. So please enjoy his presentation.
Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. Today, I'll be sharing information about the development and implementation of BC's post-secondary digital learning strategy. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm presenting from the territory of the Kwanghan people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. In the spring of 2020, British Columbia's post-secondary system pivoted towards online services in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This shift to emergency online teaching and learning impacted all areas of the post-secondary system, from learners to educators, staff, administration, and other areas of post-secondary communities, who continue now to rely on digital services to complete their studies, to deliver courses, to deliver grades, and provide feedback. The ministry and the post-secondary system collaborated to explore and address the opportunities and challenges posed by these changes and co-developed the digital learning strategy to support the BC post-secondary system's use of digital technologies in the delivery of post-secondary education and training. Shown here is an overview of the timelines for the work that led to the development of the digital learning strategy. This work started in the fall of 2021, following through with extensive consultations throughout 2022. The strategy was then released in the spring of 2023, and implementation efforts are now underway. Collaboration between the ministry and the post-secondary system resulted in several key deliverables, such as the Guidelines for Technology-Enhanced Learning and the BC Post-Secondary Digital Literacy Framework. I'll be sharing a link to the digital learning strategy and those documents at the end of this presentation. Focusing here, though, there were three strategic priorities which emerged through the in-depth consultation process with the post-secondary system. These were related to policies and processes to leverage expertise across the system to develop or update existing policies to address the impact of digital technology and to foster innovation and excellence. System collaboration was another priority identified in order to reduce costs related to digital technologies across the province. And finally, enhancing digital equity by developing BC's digital capabilities within the post-secondary system, as well as addressing barriers affecting learners, was seen as a critical component of work to be done. Each of these strategic priorities has several related recommended actions, which are now informing implementation planning. In the next slides, I'll provide an overview of the recommended actions under each of these priorities. The strategic priority for policies and processes is based on the idea that institutions will benefit from leveraging existing expertise and adapting policies to address the expanded role and impact of technology on the post-secondary education system, and that this in turn will foster continued innovation and excellence. The Guidelines for Technology-Enhanced Learning are intended to assist post-secondary institutions in navigating the expanding use of digital technologies, supporting teaching and learning by complementing and guiding post-secondary institutions' policies and processes. The Digital Literacy Framework is intended to enable the development of the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to participate in digital society, particularly within a post-secondary context. And to support the third recommended action, an ethical educational technology working group is currently working to develop a set of guidelines for educational technology to enable the ethical, accessible, and responsive use of technology in a post-secondary learning context. Finally, there was a recommendation that each year there be a forum for post-secondary institutions and organizations to present on and discuss innovation within digital learning. The first such forum will take place in November with participants from the Digital Learning Advisory Committee, the Digital Learning Strategy Implementation Steering Committee, and the associated working groups. Collaboration across the post-secondary system came up many times during the development of the strategy. Fortunately, we have a number of mechanisms that promote collaboration within the post-secondary system, including organizations such as BCNet, the BC Council on Admission and Transfer, BC Electronic Library Network, BC Campus, and Education Planner BC, to name a few. These priorities target different areas for enhancing system collaboration. The first relates to coordinated and collaborative approach to technology investment. The second is the creation of a software repository to provide post-secondary institutions with information about the applications and platforms that are in use across the system. This is intended to reduce the amount of work required to access these technologies and to support knowledge sharing and coordination across the system. The third is collaborating on shared education materials to facilitate educators to work together to gather high-quality materials and to update materials as needed. The strategy aims to enhance digital equity and digital learning opportunities across the post-secondary system. These recommendations aim to support equity, diversity, inclusion, and access for learners, instructors, and institutions. The first recommendation relates to reducing technology costs for devices like laptops and for access to the internet in order to make post-secondary studies more accessible for some learners. BC has a strong credit transfer system for post-secondary students. This second recommended action is to assist people in navigating this system within the provincial landscape in order to support learner mobility and flexibility, which is key to expanding access to post-secondary and to fostering lifelong learning. This is where the provincial digital learning strategy intersects with other provincial initiatives, including the digital services strategy and the Find Your Path digital service, which is forthcoming this fall. The third recommended action is that in conjunction with Indigenous peoples, the ministry and post-secondary system support effective approaches for intellectual property management, labeling, and licensing in order to protect Indigenous knowledge and intellectual property. There has already been work done in this area, and this strategy recommends supporting continued action on this front. The fourth action relates to remote access to software and applications and is intended to help connect learners with tools for their coursework and programs when they are not on campus, and also to include access to accessibility supports and technology. And the final recommended action in the strategy is to pilot a remote technology help desk in order to assist in a collaborative approach to resourcing for help desk services. There are several groups that are working on the implementation efforts in response to this digital learning strategy and its associated priorities and recommendations. Implementation initiatives involve representation from post-secondary institutions, the ministry, and the post-secondary sector organizations in order to ensure a breadth of knowledge, experience, and expertise. Groups that are supporting implementation of the strategy include the Digital Learning Strategy Implementation Steering Committee, which is guiding the implementation of the strategy overall and overseeing initiatives and pilots and other programs in response to the recommendations of the Digital Learning Advisory Committee. There's a Communications and Dissemination Advisory Group, which is providing advice and input for planned communications and to ensure the dissemination of information related to these activities. And thirdly, there is the Ethical Educational Technology Working Group, which will work to develop informational resources related to ethical and accessible education technology and Indigenous knowledge and intellectual property. Overall, this work is expected to benefit learners in accessing the full potential of digital learning opportunities. This slide showcases the progress that's been made towards implementing the digital learning strategy. We are working on a 3-year implementation timeline that started in the spring of 2023 and will be continuing through 2026. As you can see, the green column represents deliverables that have already been launched. The blue column represents deliverables that are under development, and the orange and red are proposals that are in progress and under development. There's a lot of activity underway, and so I will not dive into each of these activities today in my presentation. However, I'm more than happy to respond to questions, and if there are areas of particular interest for discussion, to engage in those. This is the link to the Digital Learning Strategy website. There you can access the full strategy, and you are of course welcome to connect with us if you would like to discuss this further, if you'd like opportunities to collaborate in some of these initiatives. I want to thank BC CAT and for all of you for the opportunity to join this discussion today. And if you are interested, you can always reach out to us. Our email is on the screen.
Okay, and now it is my pleasure to welcome from the ministry, we have Ben Farrell, who is here to answer your questions. Just a reminder to everybody, please put your questions into the chat or the Q&A, and Ben will do his best to respond. Thank you for being here today. Ben, you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well, doing a little better. Was recovering from about a COVID in that video, and I think it showed up. I was about as dynamic as you might expect somebody who's so I appreciate everybody sticking through that presentation.
All right. Well, we're glad you're feeling better. You certainly look brighter on this screen right here. We've got a question in the chat here. This is from Stephanie Boychuk. Are there going to be legislated changes to accessibility of online resources?
Aside from the recent release of the accessibility legislation, I would not anticipate any further changes that are being driven by this work in particular. And I think it is always a good reminder, actually, that this is all of the implementation activity we're working towards with the digital learning strategy is voluntary. So we are really working with institutions and folks who are really keen, enthusiastic adopters of this. There are no formal policy sort of directives associated with this at present.
All right. Grant McMillan from Trinity Western has said he's glad you're feeling better. Yeah, Grant McMillan, so thank you for that. So just going to pass that on to you. Just for those that don't know, Ben can't see the chat, so I'm relaying things that I'm seeing in the chat over to him, so appreciate those comments. We have another question here from Stephanie. Would the shared technology help desk be support for BCNet software or more general software and student support?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
so
please.
In terms of that shared technology help desk item, I think on the slide I had it well out into the sort of still being developed. We're really needing to, I think, identify what the feasibility is for kind of scaling across the types of software and the types of support that can be provided. So what we are working on is looking at a pilot where we could, again, work with some partnering institutions, likely an organization like BCNet, and start to identify what is feasible kind of in a first stage of that, what types of support could be centrally provided for learners, for instructors, and then, through that kind of discovery, how do we look at scaling? So to be determined, I think exactly what will be possible, but pretty keen to explore that and get some things stood up.
All right. There was a question in the chat regarding can they get the last URL that was posted on Ben's slides. We will make the slides available after the fact, after the session. But the link has been posted into the chat for those that were looking for more information on that. I have a question for you. I mean, there's so much going on with this. It's a very broad program. It looks like it's going to have many touch points across a variety of areas. Is there any particular opportunity that you want to highlight for this audience that you want people to know more about?
Yeah, I think probably a couple. And maybe what I'll do is focus it a little bit on those areas where we're really partnering with BC Campus and I think the reason I emphasize that is I think this audience in particular, BC Campus has a really good network of connections into the post-secondary system. And so a lot of that will, I think, provide opportunities for folks to actually benefit directly from some of the work that we'll be doing in partnership with BC Campus. So first, there will be an announcement likely later this month with regards to the launch of a new OER repository for digital literacy. So we built a digital literacy framework as part of this initiative, and we have been partnering with BC Campus to actually build out educational resources that could be embedded in curriculum by instructors and faculty across the system, but also resources that could be accessed directly for a learning opportunity for yourself or staff, or directly by learners or the public. So I think that's going to be a really meaningful opportunity for folks to bring that digital literacy framework to life, to look at how we can incorporate it into the educational activities that are happening broadly across our system. Is sort of one of the core aspects of people's success in the contemporary world, whether that's professionally or academically or just otherwise. So that work around digital literacy framework and the OER project that BC Campus is leading is one that I'm very excited about. Another is around work that we'll be doing again with BC Campus to look at the opportunities for professional development and training that exist in the post-secondary system around the contemporary considerations within the learning environment that have been really, I think, amplified with the rise of our use of digital technologies. So this could be, providing instruction in different modalities, but also thinking about privacy, security, data considerations, ethics, et cetera, when you're teaching in these different modalities or using and deploying different technologies. So BC Campus, with their really strong history of facilitating teaching and learning supports across our post-secondary system, this is going to be just sort of a new expansion and focus for that work that they do. And I think that's going to provide some really meaningful connections into the system. And they'll also be working with us, thinking about ways that we can really identify some of the archetypes that exist for doing shared educational resources or shared technology that allow institutions and faculty and instructors to work together in creating really strong resources, whether it's open educational resources or more into curriculum course packs, or even into new learning technologies or technology-oriented experiences for learners. So that'll be also kind of, again, within their stream of supporting open educational resources, sort of an enhancement of that, and trying to really build some practical tools for professionals out in the post-secondary system. So those ones I would suggest keeping an eye on, and they're very exciting in terms of our partnership with BC Campus.
I was involved a little bit in some of the consultations early in the development of this strategy, and I know one of the undertakings that you took on was doing an environmental scan of all the different education resources that are available, and they're quite spread out across a variety of ministries and agencies like ourselves in BC Campus. One of the questions from the group is whether there's going to be a single landing page or a common place that people can go where they can find a list or access to all of these services, and is that something that's going to be developed, or is it something that's being looked at?
Absolutely. So I think at a high level, we are definitely thinking about how we continue to improve how we are communicating out to the system on an ongoing basis about all of this work. And to that point, how do we tie it together so people know where to go and know how to then access the different aspects of this? So we have that webpage on our provincial government website. It's pretty static at present, but it's going to be something where we're continually looking at enhancing that as a bit of a hub for accessing resources. And then, there's several different places where you can anticipate that this work will emerge as sort of a source of information, depending on exactly what it is that we're talking about. So again, BC Campus is definitely going to be one of the main locations for things around digital literacy, OER, and how we start to pull together that professional development sort of information. We're also working with BC Net, and what we anticipate there will be a place where if you have an institutional email, you can access their backend wiki using a federated login service that exists. I'm sure many of you already do so. And there we'll be actually building out a repository of information about the types of software that are being used in the post-secondary system, whether that's educational in nature or even some of the more kind of administrative and commodity applications, just to make it much easier for people to have an awareness of what's in use, where privacy impact assessments are being done, and try to, therefore enable people to access those tools more easily. So it will be spread out across a couple of places, but we will try to create a hub within our government webpage. So, we'll continue to communicate as that evolves.
That's excellent, Ben. Looking through the chat, looks like we've answered all the questions that are available. I wonder if you maybe just want to say one last time where people can find out more information about the digital learning strategy, and if they have questions, who can they direct them to?
Sure. So I guess that link that's in the chat is the place to go. I would drop it in again, but I'm not actually active on the HOVA site right now. So Mike, I'll rely on you. There is a Gov website. Also, I doubt it surprises anybody if you just enter into Google BC Digital Learning Strategy. This is the first result. So that's a pretty reliable way to access it. And you can go to that place to access the strategy, access some of the underlying documents, and we'll be continuing to update it. We're also working with a number of partners to improve, I guess, our communication into the sort of many layers of the post-secondary system. So we have a whole sort of suite of communication tools that are in development, including enhancing our website, but also giving stuff to institutional representatives to take away and use as kind of talking points and information sources within institutions. So I'm hopeful that this will be kind of permeating quite thoroughly into the system. But if you want to reach out to me and my team with questions or advice, our email address is psfs.dpp@gov.bc.ca. It's on the last slide of our slide deck, so when that gets shared out, you'll be able to see it there. But it's pretty straightforward, and would love to hear from you.
I'm going to rely on my colleagues to put that into the chat because I didn't write it down in time. Sure enough, as soon as I said that we've answered all the questions, we've got a couple more coming in. So we're going to ask the last two questions. This is from Rob Fellman from Western Community College. Are there any collaborations with similar groups in other provinces, for example, eCampus Ontario?
We have connections with eCampus Ontario largely through the people that we have recruited into our committees and advisory bodies having relationships. So we don't have a government-to-government relationship with Ontario, and in particular with eCampus, but the folks at BC Campus and some of our institutional representatives are represented, whether it's on different committees that they have or just through sort of professional networks. So we are working on that type of collaboration, and we are definitely working to be aware of the work that's happening in those jurisdictions and trying to incorporate it and build on it. So it's a key aspect of how we are guiding our work.
All right, and then we'll leave the final question to Shelley Butler, who says that this seems to be directed to learning in the classroom. Are there any plans to do a similar strategy for student support services, such as counseling, accessibility services, academic advising, to help with student access?
That's a great question. So within the materials you can find on our website, there is one particular document that's called the Guidelines for Technology Enhanced Learning, and within that, it does speak to some considerations that were articulated with regards to student services and how we support learners through kind of multi-channel communication strategies. I guess, without necessarily us reaching into the operations in those areas within institutions, what we are thinking about is what are the provincial level kind of advising supports that could be helpful And so that's where this strategy really does connect with another initiative we're working on called the Digital Services Hub in the ministry, where we will be building out, I guess, like a more connected ecosystem of services that help people from the education sort of planning and engagement, funding out to the tools and services we have to connect them to the workforce. So a lot of work happening in partnership with Education Planner BC. We have some very exciting announcements coming later this month about work that we've been doing in partnership with Education Planner BC that very much is in that sort of provincial advising space. Stay tuned for that. And then, we're working really closely with Work BC, Student Aid BC, BC CAT, and the transfer credit system to try to do what we can through our digital service ecosystem to provide that provincial level advising. So not exactly reaching as much into sort of the operational aspect within institutions, but certainly thinking about it from a provincial standpoint.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Ben. This has been really informative. Really appreciate all the questions from the audience. Annabella was able to put the email into the chat, so thank you for that, Annabella, behind the scenes. And we'll look forward to hearing more about this this program as it develops over the months and year ahead. So thank you again, Ben Farrell.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good rest of the time, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Okay. And so that brings us to the end of our morning session. So we are going to head into the lunch break. So please go out and grab yourself something to eat. I will do the same. Just a reminder, we have the Transfer Student Mobility Puzzle game going on within Whova. We also have a photo board. If you want to upload your photos, you can do that and share them with the community. We are going to be back at 1 p.m. where we will be welcoming a panel that includes Todd Stuckless from Langara College, Valerie Irvine from UVic, and Vlad Dvoracek from UFV, who are going to be providing us an information on trends in course delivery options and the implications for transfer. This will be moderated by my colleague, Dr. Anna Takina. So we will be starting right around 1 o'clock. Please keep your music suggestions coming in the chat. We will do our best to accommodate, and we will see you at 1 o'clock.